How are you, math learners? Are you having trouble dealing with this kind of math problems? Just stick around and I will teach you how. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. So in this video, we'll be having a step-by-step process in solving these particular real-life application problems. Before we will move further, let us recall or remember what are the different properties of equality. So let us remember that in working an equation or solving an equation, it's somewhat related to a weighing scale, in which the left side of the weighing scale is equal to the right side. So whatever you are going to do to the left of the equation, to maintain the equality, we have to do it on the right side. So say for example, if we add something here, so we must also add the same quantity to the other side to maintain the balance. If we subtract, same is true, that will be done to the right side. If we multiply a certain number to the left, we must multiply the same number to the right. If we divide a certain number to the left side of the equation, this must be done also to the right side of the equation. Because if one side of the equation is greater than the other side, it is no longer an equality. Instead, it is an inequality. So we also have to recall about the zero product property. Or what is this property stands for? That if A times B is equal to 0, then we can say that A is equal to 0, the B is not equal to 0, or the B is 0 and A is not 0. Or A and B are both 0 because 0 times 0 is also 0. In solving those problems, I have to introduce first one renowned mathematician in the name of George Follia. So he is instrumental in crafting methods. How are we going to solve mathematical problems? So these are the steps introduced by this mathematician. First, if we solve a problem, we have to understand the problem. Of course, we cannot answer the problem unless we understand the problem. Secondly, we are going to devise a plan. How are we going to translate this given situation into a mathematical expression, into a mathematical conditions, or a mathematical statement? Lastly, we are going to carry out the plan. After coming up with a certain equation, of course, you are going to solve this equation. Then lastly, we are going to look back. So after solving the equation, so we already know the value of a certain variable. So we'll be going to look back. So we will going to check and interpret whether the given conditions stated in the problem are met or satisfied. Let's have example number 1. Suppose the area of the square is numerically equal to 50 times its perimeter. Find the length of the side of the square. So first, we are going to understand the problem. So the problem is asking for the length of the square. So if this is a square, of course, we all knew that square, all sides are equal. So in this case, we let variable s to represent this side. So after having the representation, we are going to devise a plan. How are we going to devise a plan? How are we going to translate this given expression into a mathematical statement? So in the problem, it states here that the area of the square is numerically equal to 50 times its perimeter. We all knew that in finding the area of the square, we just squared the side. And we also knew that the perimeter of the square is the total distance around this polygon. So if this is S, this side is S, this is also S, S, S. So how many S are here? So there are 4. So if we add them, so we are adding 4 sides, or we call it the perimeter of the square can be labeled as P is equal to 4 times S. So the equation, it states here, the area, which is A, is equal to 50 times the perimeter. Since we call the perimeter P, so we just substitute here. So our mathematical equation would be area is equal to 50 P, or 50 times P. And in the previous slide, I made mention about the substitution property. Since A is equal to S squared, therefore S squared can substitute A. Instead of writing A, we will substitute it by S squared. Same goes with P. Since P is equal to 4S, so instead of writing P, we will substitute P by 4S. This is now our mathematical equation. Our step number 3, we're going to carry out the plan. The equation form in the given condition, it is S squared is equal to 50 times 4S. By distributive property, 50 times 4S is equal to 200S. So in order to make this 0, we will subtract 200S both sides. Again, to maintain the balance of the equation. So that is why S squared is minus 200S is equal now to 200S minus 200S, that is equal to 0. So by common monomial factoring, so the common monomial factor of S squared, a negative 200S is S. So to obtain the remaining factor, we have to divide this given expression by the common monomial factor, which is S. So S squared divided by S, so that is S. The negative 200S divided by S is negative 200. We just copy 0. According to the zero product property, since this factor S times S minus 200 is equal to 0, we can equate its factor to 0. So the first factor S be equated to 0. The S minus 20, which is the second factor, will also be equated to 0. And solve for S. So here it's already 0. This is the first value of S. In order to eliminate a negative 200, we have to add both sides of the equation by positive 200. In mathematics, there is an algorithm, we call it a transpose. So if we transpose one quantity from the left, be transposed to the other side of the equation, the sign of that quantity will change from negative to positive or from positive to negative. Again, transpose is not properties of equality. It is just an algorithm, the shortcut of the addition property of equality. So as you can see here, S minus 200 is equal to 0. So we did not write here that we are adding both sides of the equation by 200 in order to eliminate negative 200. So what we are seeing here is we just transpose negative 200 right side of the equation. There are two values of S, which is 0 and 200. Now, which of the two will be the value of S? So again, let's go back. What is being represented by S? So S represents the side of the square. So since there's no side of the square that has no value, because S is equal to 0 means there is no distance. So that is why we will take positive 200 as the value of the S or the side of the square. So in order to be certain that this value is correct, we have to look back. We have to check. We have to interpret if this value of the side will satisfy the condition. So the condition is the square of the side is equal to 50 times the perimeter. Or it is in a simplest form, that is just S squared is equal to 200S. Now, since we have now the value of S, which is 200, we just substitute. So, instead of writing S, we will put 200. Then, quantity squared, we just copy. Then, 200, copy also. Then, S, substitute it by 200. So, 200 raised to 2 is just multiplying 200 twice. 200 times 200 is just the same as 200 times 200 here. Then if you simplify, this is equal to 40,000 and this is equal to 40,000. As you can see, both sides of the equations are equal. So therefore, we can say that this length or the measure of the side, which is 200 units, is the length of the side of the square. Let's have example number 2. Suppose that 6 times the cube of a number equals 54 times the number. So what is the number? So in this case, the problem is asking for the unknown number. So in mathematics, particularly in algebra, we always let that unknown quantity by a variable. So in this case, we will let x to represent that number. We're going to make an equation as stated on the condition of the problem. So in the problem, it says that 6 times cube of a number is equal to 54 times the number. So if this is 6 times, if the number is x, cube of that number, we will represent that one as x cube. And there is 6 times here, so we will represent this left side of the statement 6 times x cube is equal, so we can write it as an equation. So 54 times the number. So we just copy 54 and x is the number. So 54 times x. So this is now our mathematical expression that will represent this condition. So we will just simplify. So x to the power of 3 is x cubed. So we just copy 6. So the left side is 6x cubed. And 54 times x is 54x. So you are now ready to solve that problem. So the given equation is 6x cubed is equal to 54x. So by virtue of addition property of equality, we have to make sure, we have to set the right side of the equation be equal to 0. How are we going to do this? So we are going to add the additive inverse of 54. Or basically, we're just going to subtract 54x both sides of the equation. So 64x cubed minus 54x is equal to 54x minus 54x. So 54x minus 54x, that is equal to 0. So in other words, this quantity at the right side of the equation, which is 54x, if it is being transposed to the left side, it will change into negative 54x. So what quantity left at the right? That is only 0. We will factor this given expression. So the common monomial factor of 6x cubed minus 54x is 6x. Then 6x cubed divided by 6x. So 6 divided by 6 is 1. And x cubed divided by x is x squared. Negative 54 divided by 6 is negative 9. And x divided by x is 1. Or cancel out x. The quotient is just x squared minus 9. So these are the factors of 6x cubed minus 54x, and that is equal to 0. Since x squared minus 9 is a perfect square, it is a difference of 2 squares. So again, recall lesson, difference of 2 squares. How are we going to factor difference of 2 squares? So we just get first the square root of the first term. So square root of x squared is x. The square root of 9 is 3. So we just copy the two terms, what we just change the operation from positive to negative. And all of them, these factors, the product is equal to 0. So since the product of these factors is equal to 0, so by virtue of the zero product property, we can equate its factor to 0. So that is why 6x is equal to 0, x plus 3 be equated to 0, x minus 3 is equal to 0. And solve for x, so by dividing both sides by 6 to solve for x. So 6 divided by 6 is 1x, or that would be x. Then 0 divided by 6 is 0. So this is now the first value of x. And secondly, so since this is x plus 3 is equal to 0, solve for x, we just transpose positive 3 to the other side. So that will become negative 3. This is the second value of x. So same goes with our last equation. So transpose negative 3 to the other side, and we call it addition property of equality, and that is x is equal to positive 3. So notice that since we are talking about numbers, so we can, and it's not specified what particular number is that, so we can set all these numbers be the value of the unknown variable. So in order for us to verify that this number satisfies the condition, we have to check all of them. So if x is equal to 0, so we will substitute it to the 6x cubed is equal to 54x. So we just substitute x by 0. So 0 to the power of 3 is 0. And 6 times 0 is also 0. Then 54 times 0 is also 0. That is why both left and right side of the equations are equal. So therefore, this is the possible value of x. So second value of x is negative 3. So we will check if negative 3 also satisfy the given equation. So at x is equal to negative 3, so this is going to be 6x cubed is equal to 54x. So x is equal to negative 3 raised to 3, then is equal to 54 times negative 3. Negative 3 raised to 3 is we're going to multiply negative 3 3 times. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Then positive 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. So that is why this is 6 times negative 27. Then 54 times negative 3 is negative 162. Then 6 times negative 27 is negative 162. We just copy negative 162 and we found out that both sides, left and right, are equal. So this is negative 3 is possible value of the unknown variable. Lastly, if x is equal to positive 3. So again, 6 raised to positive 3, the cube, then 54 times positive 3. So 3 times 3 is positive 9, times positive 3 is positive 27. Then 54 times positive 3 is positive 162. Similarly, 6 times 27 is 162. We just copy 162. And again, both sides are equal. So therefore, since the conditions are satisfied, therefore we can say that the numbers that is asked is negative 3, 0, and positive 3. Moving forward, let's have example number 3. The area of a square is 25y squared minus 100y plus 100 square units. So what is the length of the side of the square? This problem is asking for the side of the square. And we all knew that square is a polygon whose sides are the same or equal. And the shaded part, this is the area. It is represented by an expression which is 25y squared minus 100y plus 100. So in this case, we will let S to represent the side of the square. And we are going to make an equation that will satisfy based from the given condition. So according to the problem is asking for the area of the square. And we all knew that the area of the square is just being obtained by squaring the side of the square. So if this is the side of the square, if we just square this, or we will just multiply this by itself 2 times, that is now the area of that square. So in mathematics, we will represent that area of the square is just equal to side. Since we represent S as the side of the square, so S quantity squared. According to the symmetric property, we just make the interchanging of the quantities. So the S squared be written at the left and the area be written at the right. So simplify, that is S squared. So the area of the square which is given, that is 25y squared minus 100y plus 100. We are going to substitute it here. We have now the equation to represent the condition of the problem, which is S squared is equal to 25y squared minus 100y plus 100. So in order to factor perfect trinomial, so we will just get the square root of the first term, so that is 5y. And this would be the first factor of its binomial factors. Okay, so 5y, write 5y here. So the square root of positive 100 is 10. So it's either positive 10 or both are negative 10. But since the coefficient of the middle term is negative 100, so we will take the negative 10 as the factor of positive 100, because negative 10 times negative 10 is also positive 100. So this is now the factored form of 25y squared minus 100y plus 100. And as we can see, these two terms are just the same. So we can write them in a factored form in which we just copy this term, 5y minus 10, but we will raise it to 2. So how are we going to eliminate the exponent 2 here, since we are solving for the value of S? So again, let us recall the laws of exponent, which is a power of a power rule. Say for example, a to the power of m being raised to n. So that is just equal to a m times n. So basically, simplifying an expression, this is a power of a power rule. So the exponent outside will be multiplied to the exponent inside. So 2 times 1 half, so that is 1. So again, 2 times 1 half. As you multiply fraction, Multiply the numerator and numerator, denominator and denominator. So this is there is a denominator 1 here. So 2 times 1 is 2. Then 1 times 2 is 2. Then 2 divided by 2, that is equal to 1. So that is why if we raise 2 to 1 half, that is equal to 1. So therefore, S is equal to 5y minus 10. So this would be the expression that would represent the side of the square. But how do we know that this expression is correct to represent the side of the square? So again, we have to check the given answer. So the area of the square is just equal to the side being squared. So the area is given by this expression. So the side is 5y minus 10 quantity squared. So this is a binomial, square of a binomial. So we just copy this left side expression. So to square this binomial, so 5y times 5y, that is 25y squared. So multiply the 2 to have the middle term. 5y times negative 10 is negative 50y times 2, so that would be negative 100y. Then lastly, square of negative 10 is positive 100. So as you can see, the left side of the equation is equal to the right side of the equation. So the condition is satisfied, therefore, the side of the square is represented by 5y minus 10. Now let's have example number 4. Mr. Sarmiento is planning to fence his rectangular garden whose length is 10 meters more than the width. The area is 375 meters squared. What is the dimension of the rectangular garden? How many meters of fencing materials does he need? Step number 1. The problem is asking for the dimension of the rectangular garden, and we call it the length and the width. And it's also asking for the fencing materials needed to enclose the garden. So the problem also states that the length of the rectangular garden is 10 meters more than the width. So in this case, we let x to represent the width of the rectangular garden. Why? Because length will be represented by an expression x plus 10 because it is stated that it is 10 meters more than the width. So if this is the garden, we all knew that in a rectangle, it is a polygon whose opposite sides are equal. Since the area of the rectangular garden is given, then we will use the area of the rectangular garden to find the dimension of the rectangle. So the area of the rectangle is given by the formula by multiplying the length and the width. Since the length is x plus 10, we substitute, and the width is x, so this is now our expression to find the area given with these measures of dimension. By virtue of the symmetric property of equality, we can interchange the places of this expression at the left and the expression at the right. So it can be written as x plus 10 times x, that is equal to the given area, which is 375 meters squared. Since we have now the equation, we are ready now to solve it. So the equation is x plus 10 times x is equal to 375. So by distributive property, x times x, that would be x squared. And x times positive 10, that would be positive 10x. We just copy 375. By virtue of addition property of equality, we are now able to transpose this quantity to the left side of the equation. So it's going to be x squared plus 10x minus 375, that would be equal to 0. So we will factor this trinomial. So first, x and x are the factors of x squared. Now, the constant is negative 375. So we'll be looking for the two numbers in which the product is equal to 375 and their difference is equal to 10. Two numbers that the product is 375 and their difference is 10. That is 25 and 15. So 25 is positive and 15 is negative because the sign of the middle term is positive. So the bigger factor will carry the sign of the middle term. So equate its factor to 0 by virtue of zero product property. So x minus 15 is equal to 0 and x plus 25 is equal to 0. Solve for x. So x is equal to 15 and x is equal to negative 25. So there are two possible values of x, but in this case, we will take x is equal to positive 15 because x represents the width of the rectangle. And since it is talking about the width, there is no width whose measure is negative. We call negative 25 as an extraneous root. Going to check whether the value of x will satisfy the given condition. So the width is represented by x, so that would be 15 meters. The length is represented by an expression x plus 10. So if x is 15 plus 10, so that would be 25 meters. So the area of the rectangle then will be obtained by multiplying the length and the width. 10 meters times 25 meters is equal to 375 meters, which satisfy the given condition in the problem, whose area of the rectangle is 375 meters. So since the condition is satisfied, therefore we can say that the rectangular garden's dimension is 25 meters long and 15 meters wide. So in the problem, it also asks for the fencing material in order to enclose the garden. So to determine the fencing materials needed, we need to know the perimeter of the garden. So in order for us to determine the perimeter of the garden, let us refresh what is perimeter. So perimeter, it is the distance around the polygon. So the measure of this side plus the other side, and this side is the perimeter of the rectangle. Since when we fence a garden or we fence an area, we have to enclose the lot by the fence, and we call these measurements involve perimeter. So in that case, the perimeter of rectangle will be obtained by just multiplying the sum of the length and the width by 2, because as you can see, the opposite sides are equal. Or if we can use it interchangeably, it's gonna be 2L, 2 length, because these two are equal, and the sum of 2 width. So perimeter is equal to 2 times 25, which is the length, and the width is 15 meters. So 25 plus 15 is 40 meters times 2. So therefore, the perimeter is 80 meters. Therefore, Mr. Sarmiento needs 80 meters of fencing material in order to enclose the rectangular garden. So let's have example number 5. So the product of two consecutive even integers is 120. So find the two integers. So again, the problem is asking for the two consecutive even integers. So in order for us to visualize these integers or in the given problem, so let's have the number line. Suppose in the number line, we let the first number as x. Suppose x is the first even number because in the problem, it is asking for the two consecutive. Consecutive means magkasunod na number. So if x is the first even number, let's say 2 is the first even number. So how are we going to represent the second? So if we are looking into the number line, how many units we are going to add to 2 to make it 4? So if we add 1 unit to x, that is 3. So this is 1 unit. So x plus 1, so that is representing the 3. And 3 is not even. 3 is odd number. So to represent the second even number, so we will add x by 2 or 2 units. So if this is x, so to represent the second number, which is 4, that is represented by x plus 2. So therefore, x plus 2 would represent the second even integer or even number. So devise a plan we were going to translate or make an equation based on the given condition. So according to the problem, the product of the two consecutive even number or even integers is 120. So first number times the second number is equal to 120. The first number is x, the second number is x plus 2, be equated to 120. So by distributive property, x times x, that is x squared, x times 2, that is 2x, we just copy 120. So this is now our equation that will represent the condition. The product of two consecutive even numbers or even integers is equal to 120. Okay, so again, transpose negative 20 or by addition property of equality. So x squared plus 2x becomes negative 120 and that is equal to 0. So factor. So this is negative. One of the factor must be negative. The other is positive. So x, x, these are the factors of x squared. So what is the factor of 120 such that their difference is equal to 2? So that is 12 and 10. So negative 10, positive 12, because the coefficient of the middle term is positive. That is why the bigger factor will carry the positive sign. So since these two factors is equal to 0, we can equate its factor to 0. So x minus 10 is equal to 0 and x plus 12 is equal to 0. Solve for x, so x is equal to 10 and x is equal to negative 12. Since the problem is asking for the positive even integer, so we will just take the positive 10. How are we going to check that this number is correct? So again, we will verify that this number satisfies the given condition. So the product of this number must be equal to 120. So the first number, so the second number, if 10 is the first, the second even integer must be 12 because 10 plus 2 is 12. So 10 times 12 is equal to 120. So 120 is equal to 120. The left side of the equation is equal to the right. Therefore, we are certain or we are correct that the two consecutive positive even integers are 10 and 12. So let's have example number 6. So a ball is tossed into the air. The height of the ball from the ground at time t in second is h. And it's given by the equation h is equal to negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 80. So how long does it take by the ball to reach the ground? So ibig sabihin, if the ball is being tossed to the air, how many seconds does it take by the ball before it hit to the ground? So in this case, the problem is asking for the time traveled by the ball before it reaches to the ground. So we will let that time be t. So t represents the time traveled by the ball before it reaches to the ground. So we're going to translate the equation based from the given condition. So after tossing the ball, the height h of the ball when it reaches to the ground be equal to 0. So the height of the ball as it reaches to the ground, the height becomes 0. So in this case, since height is equal to negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 80, so equate h to 0 when the ball hit or reached the ground. So substitute h by 0, so this is now our equation. So to solve an equation, particularly if in the equation, the first term, particularly if it is quadratic, the first term must be positive. So since this is negative, so we're going to multiply both sides by negative 1. So negative 1 times 16, negative 16t squared is positive 16. Then negative 1 times positive 64t becomes negative 64t. Then positive 80 times negative 1 is negative 80. And negative 1 times 0, still 0. So this is now our equation representing the given conditions. We are going to solve or to find what is the value of t. So this expression is factorable, as you can see, that the first term, the second, and the last term have common monomial factor, and that is 16. So 16t squared divided by 16, what is left is t squared. Because 16 divided by 16 is 1, so we just copy t squared. Negative 64 divided by positive 16 is negative 4, so we just copy t. So negative 80 divided by 16 is negative 5, and that is equal to 0. If we simplify this expression, we can divide both sides by the equation by 16. So divide 16 here, they will also divide 16 here. So 16 will be cancelled out. So what is left in the left side would be the expression t squared minus 4t minus 5. So 0 divided by 16 still plus 0. The factor of t squared is t and t. So what is the factor of negative 5 such that their difference is equal to negative 4? So that is negative 5 and positive 1. Equate its factor to 0. So t plus 1 is equal to 0 and t minus 5 is equal to 0. So solve for t. T is negative 1. In this equation, t is equal to positive 5. So what is represented by t? T represents the time. So time is not negative. So therefore, we cannot use this number as the value of t. Instead, we will take positive 5. So we're going to verify if this value will satisfy the given condition. So after tossing the ball, the height of the ball when it reaches to the ground be equal to 0. So the expression or the equation that would represent this condition is 16t squared as simplified minus 64t minus 80 is equal to 0. So since our t is equal to 5, what value of t that will make the left side of the equation is 0? We're trying to check. So instead of writing t, substitute it by 5. So 16 times 5 squared, then minus 64t minus 80. So 5 squared is 25. So 64 times 5 is negative 320. We just copy 80 and 0. Then multiply. So 16 times 25 is 400. Then we just copy minus 320 minus 80. So 400 minus 380 is 80. Then 80 minus 80 is 0. Therefore, it will take 5 seconds. Since the condition is satisfied, therefore it will take 5 seconds before the ball reaches to the ground.